This is Main Street with Gary Allen. Now, here's Gary.
And hello, everybody, and welcome back to Main Street. Your humble host, Gary Allen, with you. We've got a great show for you today. Two of the funniest men that are walking alive today, both good friends of mine, gentlemen all the way around. Next week, we have on the MOFON people, which deals with UFOs, USOs. No, not the touring people for the military, but underwater aliens from another planet. You've seen them on the History Channel. They're on Ancient Aliens. They actually give Ancient Aliens a lot of the pictures that they use on that program, where you see a lot of the stuff. And I'm always been fascinated. You know, we are a little hubris. With all the billions of planets and stars that are being discovered out there, suddenly we are thinking we're the only ones around here that, of human kind of life or any kind of life that could be out there with all the universes and all the planets that are being discovered. So we're going to talk about that next week. And in 2 weeks, we're going to have a sports show with my good friend Dave Lamont and a very special guest, Mr. Jeff Defoe DeForest. And he's going to be joining us both from ESPN. So I'm very excited about that. I'm very excited to have these two gentlemen on with us today. But first, I want to thank the Japanese Gardens of South Florida for their continued support of this particular program. Also, Rick Del Vecchio, my executive producer, and Tommy Schitt for being the executive producer on duty. And let me just introduce these two gentlemen to you right now. They are both comedians. One is a comedian and storyteller that I've known forever in the day. He is my Youngstown connection, if you ever really need one for Youngstown. Mark Riccadonna, and he's a comedian and an actor, as well as one of the finest gentlemen I've had to meet in about 4 days, Sal Demelio. Would you please welcome these two gentlemen to the program? Hey, there you go.
Salud.
Hey. And hey, thank you to the sponsors. I mean, it was a while ago that everybody was like, radio's dying. And now everybody is in the podcasting and radio's back and people are listening, watching. And
well, we're still having problems getting sponsors, particularly in the Miami area, the Miami market where we are, even though we go out on YouTube and shortly on Spotify. Money's a little tight and they're a little concerned about what's going to happen because of the election coming up in November. So money gets a little bit tight. I mean, I have a friend of mine who used to work with Sean Hannity. He won't anymore. And I mean, he won't. But he said even Sean had to take a big pay cut from his original contract of 10 years at $100 million. He's had to take a pay cut. Plus he only got a 5-year deal anyway.
Like $50 million now.
Yeah, he only took a little bit of a cut there. Let me tell you a little bit about where these gentlemen are going to be performing. First, let me start off with Mark Riccadonna. Mark is going to be at the Vanguard Hill in Portland, Maine on August 31st doing the New York versus Boston show. If you need a bail bondsman up there for that one, I'd be happy to recommend someone to you. On September 4th, through the 7th, he'll also be at am I getting this right? Ahern All-Star Comedy Show in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Where is that? Is that something
Ahern
new since I left?
Luxury Hotels. It is.
It's a new one, right?
Yeah, it's a newer room. They don't have a casino. This is for corporate people that are coming into town, and it's a lot of locals like to go there because it's a fun and it's a beautiful place. And the guy who hosts it is this guy Lorenzo, and he's a magician, but he's hysterical.
He's a tall guy, right?
Yeah.
I think when I was in Las Vegas, you know how it is, Sal. You go, yeah, you know what I mean. You get to meet everybody. On September 27th through the 28th, he's going to be at the Mohegan Sun, where I was hatched, Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. By the way, take plenty of food because after 12 o'clock noon. Everything kind of rolls up there, I mean, they don't have a
casino's pretty cool. I really love the casino there.
Is it like the one in Connecticut? Is it like the one in Connecticut?
Yep, and I laugh because you think casino and you're used to Vegas and Atlantic City where you can stay out all night. The tables will stay open, but if you have a cocktail, they are grabbing it and tossing it.
Wow.
What
And I
time?
warn people because last call I load up, so I can walk around. I
What
don't
time
even
is last
gamble.
call? What time is last call?
I think two.
Oh God, if you aren't sloshed by then, man, if you haven't lost enough money by then, dear God, save my life savings. Hey, listen, we got to talk because when you're there, I haven't been back in Wilkes-Barre. 1971, when I came home from my first tour in Southeast Asia, I went there, and man, I don't know what it's like now, but man, it was a poor town. I mean, it was like even below middle class.
It's a tough town, very blue collar, very tough, but I really enjoy it, and the people, the audiences are great there.
They're
They
right
just
wing
come out to
politically.
laugh.
Yeah, they're
I
right
think
wing
so.
politically, though. I think.
I don't talk politics, so
Thank God. Thank God, because with that
Smart,
face,
smart, Marks. Very smart.
very smart. And then October 5th, you're going to be at the Wayne Theater in Waynesboro, Virginia, doing your storytelling. What I love about Mark is his storyteller, everything. Now, for my good friend Sal from Detroit, that's nice,
Detroit, but I'm originally from upstate New York, near Mark. I'm originally from Binghamton, New York, so this is
Wow.
very close to Pennsylvania.
How did you get from Binghamton? Well, we'll get into that in a few minutes. I'm going to do that. Wednesday, August 28th at the Gatehouse in Mackinac Island.
Yeah, Mackinac Island. Yeah, my first time performing there. It's a beautiful island up north.
Yeah,
If
beautiful. You know what I
anybody's
mean?
heard of it.
Yeah, you know what I mean. It's one of those things.
Take a lot of my victims. I drop a lot of victims in the water out there.
Go up. Hey, listen.
yeah.
Hey, listen.
Fishing
The main course at the main Italian restaurant is broken leg of lamb. Saturday, September 7th at the Crystal Gardens Hall in Southgate, Michigan. Where is
Yep.
Southgate?
Southgate is probably 20 minutes south of Detroit. It's actually what Journey was singing about, south of Detroit. No, I'm just kidding. But it is 20 minutes south of Detroit. So.
Oh, cool. All right.
Journey's canceling their tour. They're on
What's
tour
that?
with my Journey just canceled their tour.
Oh, did they really?
Yeah, I just saw them in Philly. They were with. I'm friends with the guys from Steve Miller Band. It was
Yeah.
them and Def Leppard, but apparently Neil Sean and the keyboard player are at odds and suing each other. And
Oh my God.
Have you ever known a rock and roll group that eventually doesn't sue each other?
Yeah,
they
no
all
kidding,
get
right?
along.
Even the guys in
family.
even the guys in Chicago who I've known forever, they don't get along 100% either. They're always replacing somebody or another. September 20th through the 21st, you're at Don's House of Comedy in Kentucky. Now, I got to tell you something, Sal. You got to be using your D&E stuff in Kentucky. I mean, come on, for God's sakes.
Well, we'll see. I've performed in Louisville and Lexington, Kentucky. Great people down there. They got my Italian stuff for some reason. I don't know what's going on down there, but those
you two could be brothers.
I know.
That's why I
know.
like him. He's a handsome man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
'cause-
think I
because
need
when
to I need to grow a beard like him, and we'll really be twins.
Get nice
When I
and
called
gray.
him up and I said, enough of this crap ignoring me. Oh, I'm busy, Gary. I can't, I got the kids, I got the this, I got the that, I got this. I can't do it. I'm doing a movie with here. I'm doing, and I said, enough of the crap. You're coming on the show. I want somebody on with you that's funny and nice and good. And he said, okay, all right. So he got you. That's great. I was going to try to get Chris DePetta, but Chris is feeling a little under the weather right now because I wanted Chris. And, it's funny. Even Rich Snyder goes, I didn't know you knew Chris. I said, what do you think I was doing in LA all those years? Chris used to come in and see me and everybody else. He said, oh, that's right. He's scary. I keep forgetting you were in LA for a long time. I said, yeah, that's how I cut my teeth between them and the Groundlings. Oh, I heard some bad stories about that. Okay, real quick, because I've never asked you this, Youngstown. I love him. You know something? I really do love Mark. Mark is the only guy that's ever sent me a baseball cap in the mail, and I love him for it. I'm Sal. I'm a big Philadelphia Phillies baseball fan.
Oh, that's the first baseball stadium I ever went to was when I was a kid. Our baseball team coach took us to see the Phillies. It was my first ever baseball game. So, but I hate the Phillies now. Sorry.
They're on they can't get out of their own way right now for some reason.
They're a good team though. I think they're pretty good this year. They got decent.
Yeah, but they just lost their 17th game out of their first 24 after the All-Star break.
Oh, really? All right, I didn't know
Yeah,
that. They're still in the hunt, obviously.
Oh no, they're still in first place. They're by a wide margin.
Wow. Yeah, I love
Why?
baseball. I follow a lot of baseball.
Oh, dude, I don't follow it statistically and
Oh,
all that.
I
I just
follow
like
it every
watching the
day.
game.
I read box scores like it's not going out of style.
I read it. I like to watch the games to watch. Even when my brother played, when he played for the Baltimore Colts, I never paid attention. Of course, back then the statistics didn't matter like they do today, but I wasn't into all that. I was into, let me watch the game. Did the Colts win? Did the Colts lose, and why? And that's about it. That's all I ever cared about.
I
For
don't know
both of
about
you
guys. I think Gary, you're like me. I don't know, Sal. You said you read the box scores, but like I know forever, especially after high school when I moved out and moved, I didn't care who was playing. If football was on, I watched it. It could be high school football. I don't know why they're high schools. I'd watch it. It's like I just want to watch a game. And then I have these friends that know, like, oh, left-handed running backs on Tuesdays tend to have.
I'm not that crazy. I'm not an encyclopedia on this.
No,
stuff.
you got guys that do sports shows know all that stuff because they have to.
Exactly.
You know, even my two buddies.
Nerd culture.
It is. It's like the political arena. It's like, every little ins and outs, and this person is over here, and they struck out 29 times or whatever. When we do our sports show here once a month with my buddy Dave Lamont from ESPN, it's just we keep it kind of light and have some fun with it. Both Dave and I went to the University of Miami. Jeff DeForest, who will be on with us at the end of the month as well, he went to Syracuse. I mean, it's like we talk sports, but we don't get into the stats and stuff.
It's like it's like I can't follow.
No, I'm not that involved in it, but I do follow baseball pretty religiously just because I love
think
it.
baseball
Football,
is
basketball. No, I don't.
I love the NBA. My Celtics.
I love watching
this
it
year.
too. I love watching, but only the playoffs. Too many games.
My Celtics won it all this year, and I'm so happy.
They did. That was a good squad.
You know that William Shatner sketch on Saturday Night Live where he walks into the Star Trek convention? He's like,
"Oh yeah,
bunch of nerds."
Yeah. That's so
like
great.
When people talk sports like that.
That's clip.
Oh yeah. You can get them in. It's like once I went with my sister, who we spoke about before the program, and and there were a bunch of psychologists and psychiatrists. I was like, and there was one cute girl. I mean, she was beautiful. She was married to one of the guys, and I looked over at her. She looked over at me, and we got together and drinking. And she said, "I'm so far on board with this thing. And I said, well, is there someplace we can go and have a drink?" She said, "Screw that. Let's go someplace and have sex." She said, "My husband only cares about their patience, the patience." I said, "Well, I have enough patience for both of us." So anyway, all right.
Hey, hold on. Am I allowed to fact check Gary on any of these stories?
Yes, you can do anything you want. Fact check me all you want. Why comedy? Out of all the things I know, Mark went to New York not to be a comic, to be a serious actor, much like Robin Williams. Sal, what about either one of you want to start off? But why comedy? Why be a comedian? You know how tough it is before you even got into it.
Yeah,
I didn't think it was a thing that would happen.
But when did you get on stage? You had to be goated to get on stage at some point.
I'll let Sal go. I feel like I talk too much all the time.
I could talk about this for a long time. I'll make it short. Basically, I loved comedy, stand-up comedy my whole life. When I was in my 20s, I would literally only watch Carson because of the comedian he would put on at the end. I mean, I loved Carson and the whole show, but I was excited about the end to see a Jerry Seinfeld come out or one of these young comics. And I was just intrigued by it, but I never thought I could do it. I just didn't think I could do it. I loved it, but I didn't think I could do it. And then when I was 30 years old, a buddy of mine who's still a comedian now, Bill Bushard, said he was taking a comedy class at Mark Ridley's. And he's like, "I think you're a hilarious, off the cuff kind of guy. I think you should do it with me." And I did it and I got hooked. And that's kind of how it happened with me. And I just started doing it and thinking, get more confidence and like, okay, I can maybe do this, So you start believing in yourself a little more the more you do it.
Yeah.
I was kind of doing it for fun while I was in theater school. I worked at a comedy club. I was hanging out with the comics. And I was having fun, and they were like, "You should go up. You should go up." And I'm like, "I'll give it a try. I'll have, I thought if you became a comedian, it was because you were already famous. Like Eddie Murphy, even though now I know the real story, but
Yeah.
back in the day, and this is before you could just like Wikipedia it.
Yep.
I thought Eddie Murphy was a famous actor, on Saturday Night Live, and then it was like, oh, and he's funny, so he'll do comedy. But I
Yep.
mean, now I know it's the opposite. So it wasn't a thing that I thought was like a real thing. And then all of a sudden, I was doing it for fun while people were paying the checks. Then I was getting offered the like, hey, you want to go out on the road? And it wasn't because I was a great comic. I had a car. And in New York City, that is like you skip the line. Like, and
Yeah.
I drive these really great comics who are all like, big shots now, and or
Wow.
a lot of them passed away, but they weren't famous then. They were just regular working class comics, and then they go, "Hey,
Sure.
if you drive me to Pittsburgh, I'll throw you gas money and a couple $100." And I'm like, "Wait, you're gonna pay me?" Next thing I know, I'm
Beautiful.
like, "I think if I really try, I might be able to do it." And
Yeah.
I did, and it worked. It worked out,
Yeah.
and I feel like one of the most extremely lucky people in the world. I mean, I worked my butt off, but without that shot of luck of it happening, it would have never happened. And I
Yep.
got
Yeah.
trolled last night. I was at a film festival, so I couldn't really go back and forth with the guy. I got trolled last night. He was like, "Oh, you're like an R-list comic," and I'm like, first of all, if you make your living as a comedian, I don't care what you can say whatever you want to me,
Yep.
because it is so difficult to make a living in this business.
It
Yes.
is.
The
It's
fact that
very,
I
very
can
tough.
pay my mortgage, and I have two kids, and I have a car, they're not fancy, but I got two cars. I don't care that you don't know who I am. I
Yep.
make a living doing what I love, and I feel like I
Absolutely.
cheated life by
Yeah.
being able to do that.
Absolutely. Well said,
Absolutely.
brother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When did you know? I mean, Mark, in your case, besides, I mean, Sal has worked with Eric Roberts. That had to be an interesting thing.
Yeah. Very cool.
You've also done a lot of directing, producing. You've also worked. Let's see, you worked for the Johnny. Oh, you also had. Well, I know in this case, Mark, you work with Johnny Fogelhorn. I know that with John Fogelhorn, and both of you have done a lot of comedy clubs all over the place. And I know you do a lot more than just comedy. You're acting, directing, both. But when did you know? You know what? I can make a living at this. It may not be a millionaire, and I may not be George Carlin, but I can make a living at this. I can get married maybe and have some kids and have a
I was in
happy life.
acting school, and that was my only goal. My only goal when I was in acting school was, if I can make a living being creative, I had a successful life and a worthwhile life worth living.
Yeah.
That's all I thought about. And so, I was fortunate. Right out of school, I started booking voiceover stuff, which allowed me to pursue this without
And that's not easy yet.
No, but it gave me enough money that I could pursue my dream without having to go to a 9 to 5 job. And I was smart. I could have blew that money and bought a fancy car and did whatever. I paid my rent like a year in advance when I got this check. And I just was like, I have a place to live. And, even if I live off of bar food, I'm going to figure it out. And I'm a little all over. Like, I have a very diverse portfolio with the art.
Yeah.
It's
Yes, you do.
acting, directing, comedy. I'll do whatever it takes to just be creative. That's all I want in life.
But Mark, your rent must have been what, $29 a month? I mean, if you're paying it off in one with one check, But you said something interesting, because somebody keeps always saying to me, because when I was in LA, I did voiceover work. When I was doing radio in Miami, I did voiceover work. I don't know. I was born with this crazy voice to do voiceover work. Today, if you're not,
it's next to impossible to break in now.
Look at my nephew. He doesn't get any voiceover work anymore, and he was on Full House for what, 9 years, and then a couple of years with the remake before Bob died. Well, that show was canceled before Bob died, but Yeah, voiceover work comes to the big time performers now. It doesn't come to the little people.
Again, it was complete luck. It was complete luck. I got out of school at the exact time that the industry was looking. They always look for a type. And
Yeah.
I got out of school and they were looking for the Adam Sandler, Owen Wilson, Will Ferrell, like the very like regular guy voice.
Yeah.
And
And
I
you are
went
that.
in, and
Yeah.
but like
Nailed it.
I look at people who have these great booming voices that are just amazing for radio, and they weren't getting work, and they're like, "You're working? Like your voice is horrible." It's like I was lucky.
Because they have a radio voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a
But that came
radio.
back.
Yeah, but I have a radio voice, and even my speech patterns are that of someone who works in radio or who worked in radio. Short but sweet. And Sal, you have a great voice. You have a great look.
Yeah, well, I've been told I've been told that I do have a good voice for that stuff, and I've never done it. But I am intrigued with voiceover work. Like I know you guys do this, obviously, Mark, both of you guys, because of the industry you're in. If I hear a commercial on the radio, I'll always say at the end of that commercial, I'll just go, man, that guy nailed that audio for that commercial. I'll say it to myself like, man, that guy did a great job, or that guy's got a great voice. You know, I just say it to myself. I don't know why. I just do. It's great listening to that stuff, but I've never dabbled in that. As far as my journey is so different than Mark's. I told you guys a little bit how I started, but I always had a corporate job. I went to Eastern Michigan. I graduated a marketing degree. I wanted to be in sales. I got a sales job with a tea company, and I did that for 20 years while doing comedy at night. I even did comedy for sales presentations, you know, kind of incorporating comedy in with my day job.
That's cool.
And just did it at night for 20 years like that. And then in 2018, I kind of didn't really like my day job anymore. It was kind of getting hard. I mean, hard, like different bosses and things were changing. And I'm like, hey, if I'm going to jump off the bridge here and do this full time, I might as well do it now. So I did it then. And then the pandemic happened 2 years later and kind of set everything back. But now, you know, things are back to normal. I'm kind of moving ahead. Like Mark just said earlier, I'm doing it. You know, I'm scraping by and
I love it.
Going into my 401k, but I'm having a great time.
You know, your story is like,
because you're a good guy.
Yeah,
your story is
you too.
Your story is very much like Rodney's story.
I guess a little bit. I know Rodney he was always in it. He got out to have a family and stuff like that. I didn't have a family. But yeah, I see what you're saying. Well, hey, if it ends like Rodney, I'll take it. If I get a $10 million movie deal for Back to School, I'll be more than happy. But I got to say something about Mark real quick.
Go ahead.
I met Mark. I didn't meet him how normal comedians meet at a comedy club, watching each other set, and you kind of hang out after. I met Mark with a mutual friend of ours, Derek Richards, was doing some stuff in Michigan, and so was Mark. And then I was doing something in Ann Arbor. So I don't know how it happened, but we met at one of these it was
like a speakeasy bar.
Like a speakeasy bar that had these great drinks and stuff. And we just hit it off. I had never seen the guy's comedy before, but we just hit it off. Like, I just felt like he wasn't one of these comics that are self-centered. There's so many comics that it's just about me, where me and him were kind of bouncing off where we grew up and everything. And it was just great to meet you that one night, buddy. And we've kind of been friends ever since. And then he comes into town. He came to One Night Stands Comedy Club. I went out there and kind of watched his stuff. And like you said, just a great storyteller, comedian. We're kind of so different on stage, but it was fun to watch him that night. And anyway, we've been friends ever since.
All my friends that are in Ohio, all the stand-ups that are still in Ohio that I know through the years, always talk so well of Sal and how he was like a normal dude who then went on stage and was like a killer comic, but off stage was completely normal dude. And I was like, I got to hang out with that guy because that's what I need in my life.
It's crazy, man.
Of the comics that go ahead.
Hey, Gary, let me jump in for 1 second because I think this is kind of an interesting question to ask these guys. It seems like there's been a mass exodus of top tier, mid tier comedians that have left LA for Austin, Nashville, wherever. what is the new up and coming? I mean, Rogan built the comedy mothership in Austin, but what is the up and coming place to get, for great comedy acts or places where you guys want to get some exposure?
And
then I'll jump out because there's way too many hotties over
here. Actually, it's funny because I never wanted to leave Queens. I thought I was going to live and die in Queens, and I love it there. I still do. I still love going there. I still love going to New York. But I love the community of Astoria, specifically Queens. And I was friends with restaurant owners and bar owners, and it was like I would leave town, I'd come back, they'd want to know what's going on. But then when it came time to talk about wanting a family, I realized like we can't do it here. We got to move out. My wife's from the Philly area, so we're like, we'll move out. And I was really nervous because I was going, if I leave, I'm going to be out. Like I might as well like disappear and never do comedy again, or I'll never act again, whatever.
Yeah.
And I moved out, but we stayed close enough that I could still go in and I could still do whatever. But honestly, the pandemic kind of like everybody was doing it with the internet and being like, you know what, with the internet, you can be anywhere. You don't have to be in Chicago. You don't have to be in New York. You don't have to be in Atlanta. You don't have to be in Vegas, LA. And then the pandemic happened, and that was like throwing water on the gremlins. All of a sudden there were comedians everywhere.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And but I feel like all these, and I don't mean this in a condescending way, but I named those cities: Chicago, New York, LA, Vegas. They're like the A cities for if you wanted to be in entertainment. But now the B cities are starting to be just as big as the A cities and the C cities. There's these little communities of like, Charleston, South Carolina is a great example. Like where all of a sudden all this stuff, Asheville, like they're making a scene. Like they have their own scene and their own style and their own thing. And so now it's like there's a budding thing happening all over. I mean, Austin was always kind of a go-to. It was always a go-to. So like his move, the lateral move from LA to Austin wasn't like amazingly groundbreaking where because there's a scene there. Nashville has a great scene. Oh my God, Nashville's scene is like through the roof. But like these little cities are starting to, like the littler ones, they're starting to
Mark, let me say this. The only reason comics ever moved to LA is because show business is in LA. That's the only reason. The Tonight Show, getting a sitcom, or getting recognized. That's the only reason. And if you talk to any of them, I know I said to Saget one night, I said, Bob, you're from Philadelphia. I mean, you were doing well there. You weren't doing as well as you are here, but why? When I first moved to LA, I didn't know a lot of these guys, but even Bud Friedman said they're only coming here for one reason: show business, television, movies. It's here. If it was someplace else, they'd be going there.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, Bayonne, New Jersey just opened like a couple $1 billion facility that rivals any studio in LA. Netflix built it. And so now like the outskirts of Jersey are going to be more demanding than New York City, because who wants to cross a $16 tunnel to go to the studio when they could live in Jersey and just go there,
Well, here's a question that I wanted to ask both of you gentlemen. TikTok has created its own comedy venues on board. Chris DePetta and I were talking about this the last time he was on the show. And for those of you who don't know, Chris DePetta is not only a dear friend of mine, as Mark knows, but he's also the owner of the Punchline. He's also Billy Gardell's manager.
Successful manager,
Oh, he's also he's helped me out when I was financially really, and not too long ago either. But Chris is just one of those great gentlemen. These TikTok performers, he said, I booked a couple in the club. He said they get up and they do 20 minutes, and then the next night they do another 20 minutes, and it's the same 20 minutes. He said, I don't like that. I like comedians that come in, they'll do one set maybe on Friday night, and then Saturday night they'll do another set that's completely different. He said they have nothing behind them. They did everything on on the internet and there's nothing behind them. There's no
I don't
years of
begrudge
training.
them. I don't
No,
begrudge them for their success. I think it's great. I think it's a different thing. I think it's a different art form.
Yep.
It's the same way. I mean, but it was the same thing 10, 20 years ago. They brought in the soap stars.
Yep.
And they were doing comedy nights at comedy clubs, and they were telling stories about their time at General Hospital or whatever.
Yeah, that was the start of it. You're right.
It's a different thing, and good for them.
Soap opera
good for
people.
them. They're making good money. Yeah.
That was a big thing. You would do a club, and there'd be like 3 weeks of the stand up, like me and Mark, and then the fourth week it'd be whoever from General Hospital.
Yeah, General
You're
Hospital.
Like,
and most of them. Those people are not the funniest people in the world. I knew a lot of them in LA. They're not.
No, but the thing is they would sell the club out, and it would be all these housewives who watch the shows religiously. And sometimes, I mean, I met a lot of these guys because they'd have a comedian host it, and I met a lot of them, and they're great. They're amazing, and they would be like, these women would come, and they would like curse out the guy. I can't believe you left Laura. How could you do that? Like,
yeah,
I'm an actor. Like,
yeah,
we're best friends. I talk to her every day. We're still, but like, it's like it's the same thing repeating itself. I'm not afraid of that. I think that they're bringing in a lot more people that it's taking away work from us. I don't know if it's necessarily taking away work. It's keeping the clubs open. They're filling up the clubs with them, with whatever, and it's. I mean,
did you ever run into
Sal? And I can say for myself, the fact that he can go on stage and for 1 hour make that audience laugh as hard and as fast as possible, he has job security. Sal doesn't have anything to worry about. He's going to continue to work.
Did you ever run into Mark? Did you ever run into Ken Schreiner, Will's brother?
Man, that
Ken was he was Scotty Baldwin on General Hospital forever and a day. And I can tell you one soap opera actor, well, two that I know of that will never be doing stand-up anywhere. Eric Braeden from The Young and the Restless, because he plays Victor Newman, and he's the bad guy. Eric is not a very funny guy, even in real life. He's a nice guy. And Peter, oh God, what's Peter's last name? Anyway, he's on The Young and the Restless. Peter's a funny guy, but he's not a stand-up kind of a guy. I never knew that they did that. Oh my God. Oh, they ought to have, hey, it's talk show night. Hey, talk show. Larry King from the grave.
I mean, the thing is these clubs are booking TikTok stars or YouTube stars or whatever. And
but how long can that last? Mark, how long can that last? I mean, they have no act, really.
But that's the thing. It's a different art form, and that's fine. I mean,
and some of them can hire writers. They can hire writers.
Yeah, Sal, they can do that. Yeah, because a lot of comics who are even famous hire writers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, the only one that I ever knew that didn't have somebody that, I mean, Leno had a whole stack of writers for the. Speaking of politics, for the Tonight Show, and even David did too. And some comics have writers that did input, because I know Bruce Falange is constantly working. God bless him.
Yeah.
But Bruce is he's such a sweetie. He really is. I wanted him to come on the show today too, but he's doing something in LA. He said, "Oh, honey, I can't. I'm just so busy."
That would have been great. Make him.
Oh, you could. Oh, Mark is even shocked. Mark is even like, you know who? You know what? What? I mean, Anyway, Sal, what do you think about this? I mean, can it sustain itself?
Well, I just to piggyback on what Mark said, he was just so right. I think one of the things that I saw, at least, was the pandemic, how we were all locked down, and comedy became even bigger on the internet during that time, right? The TikTok clips got big, the Dry Bar got big, and people were seeing clips online as we were all locked down. So I think what happened was comedy kind of got a boost, like Mark said. Then comedians came out of the woodworks, like everybody was trying comedy. But what happened was it helped guys like me and Mark, because we've been doing this for so long. Yeah. We thought it was big 25 years ago when nobody thought it was big. So we learned our craft, and now I think we're benefiting from that, because we don't necessarily have to work the clubs every week. I'm doing a winery this weekend. I can do a bar gig next week that pay decently. Then you do your casinos, and then you get a club here and there, and you're building your resume, or you're building your calendar, because of comedy has become so big. that people want to see it right down the street from their house. They may drive by a sign that says comedy tonight at 9 p.m. People are going to go, oh, let's go see comedy, because they've been watching it so much on the internet that now they want to go see it live. So I think it's kind of helped.
My only regret is if I could go back, when everybody was like, you got to put clips online, you got to do this. And I went, no, I'm not going to. The people who are putting clips on right now are people that want what I'm already doing.
Yes.
So I'm not going to put my stuff up because I don't want people to see my material, then come out to see me or whatever. So my regret is I didn't do that because I watched people fly past me.
Well, it's a really double-edged sword about putting your material. You're right. You know, it's very interesting. I know, Gary, you're going to appreciate this, but Jay Leno has no clips online, not one stand-up clip. He just won't do it. And, you know, the guy doesn't need the money to try to get his career going with clips online. So he doesn't need to do it. But that's a guy that just says, I'm going to hide my material for the live people. Unfortunately, I don't have that luxury. So I do throw some of my stuff out there. And if it gets stolen, it gets stolen. And if I do it on stage and somebody comes up to me and says, well, I heard that, you know, I heard you do a clip on that. That's just the way it is. You know, hopefully it gets me to write more. But right now I'm throwing some stuff out there. But
well, Jay's not performing anymore anywhere.
This is interesting, though. I want to piggyback off of Sal because
go ahead.
Dry Bar I never would put clips of my stuff up because I do long bits. Like my bits are like 10 minutes long. So it's like if you cut it up, people would go, well, it didn't end. Or they go, how did we get here?
That doesn't matter, I don't think, really.
Dry Bar put a 5-minute clip of my parachuting story.
Yeah.
And it's the edited down version. The real story is 10 minutes long, but they put a 5-minute story up. And this happened, and I'm not humble bragging, but it tells you the power of the internet. I was booked somewhere. They looked me up online. They saw the clip from Dry Bar. They watched it. They said, oh, we like him. Let's go see him. They came out. I didn't do the skydiving bit.
Yep.
After the show, they came over and go,
yep,
we were waiting for you to do the skydiving bit. I'm like, how do you know the skydiving bit? They're like, well, we looked you up to see if we wanted to come. We saw the skydiving story and we wanted you to do it. And I was
you
like,
scallywag,
wow.
you.
Yeah.
That's what a band has to feel like. Like you didn't play your hit.
That happened to me. I got a pretty good corporate gig, actually in Pittsburgh, out near you. I drove all the way to Pittsburgh. This guy paid me pretty decent money for
where in Pittsburgh?
I forgot. It was like a hotel like banquet hall because they were doing a sales meeting.
I went to college there for a while at Carnegie Mellon. I studied drama.
Oh, okay. But it was the same thing. After the show, the guy comes up to me, he goes, you were great. He goes, but you didn't do the Facebook bit. He goes, that's the only reason I hired you was your Facebook bit online. And I go, I am so sorry. Oh my God. If you would have told me, I haven't done that bit in like 5 years. You know, I wasn't planning on doing it, but that's the only reason he hired me. He says, I saw that clip and I hired you. I said, I wish you would have told me that, you know? So
Sal,
same thing, Mark. It's hysterical.
I'm going to tell you a story, Sal. This scallywag up here, this beautiful man up here, his mother made a contract with him that if she bought him a brand new Firebird, the one like Burt Reynolds had, he would not leave Youngstown, Ohio. He goes back to Youngstown, Ohio to perform a couple of years ago. And the sheriff is waiting for him at the door at the comedy club with an arrest warrant from his mother. She wants the Firebird back, which, you know, he says, I sold it. No, I
got a fact check here.
Now wait a minute, Tommy. When you come back, you gotta have one of these girls standing next to you when you come back.
Tommy, get some talent behind you there.
Oh shit!
Gather them around.
Beyond that, I want to ask a 2-part question.
Go ahead.
One is, how do you deal or how do you feel about these comedians, comics that steal jokes?
Oh.
AKA George Lopez, AKA there's a million of them.
Robin
that need
Williams.
to be called out, and they get called out.
Robin was famous for it.
Yeah, and part 2 is, who are some? I mean, obviously there's for you guys, and we're kind of in the same age bracket. I'm 53. Richard Pryor's, George Carlin's, those type of guys that you listen to their records when they're actually like records. hiding from your parents in the basement. Oh, we're gonna listen to George Carlin. We're gonna listen to Richard Pryor live on Sunset Strip, and then hopefully hide it somewhere where they're never gonna find it. Who were some of the guys that influenced you, comedic wise, and then who are some of the guys that you think are starting to influence the newer generation of comedians?
That's something. It's funny. He didn't write my stuff, but those two are my questions. So Tommy,
Sorry,
next time you come back,
Gary.
when you come back,
I
you
just
better
wanted
have
to do
some.
it more concisely.
Tommy, when you come back, you better have some stuff standing next to you. That's all I'm going to tell you.
All right, I'm on the other side of the bar. That's the problem. Shit.
Well, don't worry about it.
All right,
Just get him on the other side of the bar. All right.
You got it.
Go ahead, guys. Answer this man's question.
Go ahead, Mark.
By the way, Robin Williams, I saw him get jacked up at the Improv one night. I won't tell you who did it, but I can tell you it was a very famous comic. You steal from me again, Robin, and you're going to the morgue.
Yeah, I
and
heard
Robin had
like
this.
that.
Oh, Robin was he didn't mean to do it. His mind was thinking faster than he could. And we didn't know at the time that even back then his mind was starting to.
Well, and
he was when he did
the whole time, like he's improvising, and it's like if something is there, it might come out.
Yep.
Yeah.
There are people that's who deliberately steal, and I almost deliberately stole from Sal.
Hey, Sal.
Sal,
who did I tell you about?
That steals material
from me.
When we were talking?
Yeah, remember when we were talking? I told you.
I forgot.
And Mark, you know who I'm referring to. His brother is even in the business.
Okay.
You know who I'm referring to.
I forgot.
He stole from me, the little shit. And I have never, I'm cursing again. Hell with it. All right, put some money in the cup. But at any particular rate, I don't like people who steal jokes.
I literally don't think Bobby Lee stole any material, Gary. He is a little guy.
Thank you. All right, Tommy, where's the women? Hey. By the way,
I was on a podcast. I was on a podcast with the bass player of Mickey Dolenz. Mickey Dolenz is bass player.
Yeah.
And we were talking about, and he was talking about how last time he owns a bar in Nashville, and when I was there, it took us like an hour and a half to leave, because every time we'd go to leave, he kept coming back and giving us kisses and hugging. And I was like, oh my God, my buddy has a bit that I couldn't, your name wasn't right there. And I like kind of went into the bit, and I'm like, and I thought I was going to go, and that's Sal Demelio's bit. And by the time, man. So when we finished the thing, I had to tag Sal in the clip. Yeah. And I said the funny bit that I'm referring to is Sal Demelio, because I felt so bad. I wanted to totally give him credit for this the Italian goodbye bit.
Yeah. By the way, for those of you that are wondering, you're watching Main Street. Sal Demelio is joining me, a comedian and a dear friend now. There's no doubt about it. And of course, the cornball from Youngstown, my brother from another mother, Mr. Mark Riccadonna. By the way, just to end that story. He was in the clink for 24 hours and his mother wouldn't bail him out.
Oh, jeez. Is that true? Is this all true?
No, it's not. It's all.
My mom did tell me she would buy me the Trans Am from Smokey and the Bandit if I decided to not go to New York.
Okay.
Yeah, and I always, he says to me all the time, you remember that story?
Oh, that's great.
Whatever the case may be. By the way, I just wanted to let you both know that this is one of the most fun shows. I can't wait for next week.
Thank you.
I can't wait for next week because I have the MoFon people coming on. Those are the people you see on Ancient Aliens and stuff. Okay. I've always been fascinated by all that crazy stuff. And by the way, if you ever wonder about comedians, yeah, we're kind of weird. Follow up on Tommy's question. Who influenced you? I know that when you talk about comedians, are they born or do they happen? People like Richard Pryor, George Carlin, they were born to do what they did. Even Robin, who started out as a serious actor in New York, he was born to do what he did. Comedians can be born. Some of them can learn the mechanics and make a somewhat living at it. But, and who influenced you guys?
Some of yours? Because I've watched your set, Sal.
Oh, Sal. Okay.
I'm wondering who it is because
that influenced me
yourself on stage.
So when I was like young, I loved like Rodney Dangerfield. Yeah. I loved Jerry Seinfeld. I loved like Ray Romano because obviously he was Italian. This is when I was like in my 20s.
Ray Romano. Yeah.
George Carlin. Some of his older stuff when he was a little less political.
Did you ever see George when he was? Did you ever see Oh, please don't. That's the guy who stole from me.
But to be honest with you, those are my influences. A guy by the name of Nick DiPaolo, who I worked with early in my career, and when I saw a cynical Italian guy, I'm like, oh my God, that's me, right? But as far as that goes, those were the pros that influenced me. But I'll be honest with you, my friends made me a comedian. I have the funniest friends growing up, man, and I was laughing my whole adolescent life, and those people became professional salesmen and stuff like that. One of them's an actor, actually, but none of them did comedy. I was the only one that did stand up, and I swear I think my youth has benefited me in my stand up because I have funny friends. Still to this day, I have a lot of funny friends, and it just influenced me more than probably pros. It's weird.
If you grow up in an Italian neighborhood or a lot of Italian friends or even Greek friends or whatever, you're bound to see comedy like crazy. My mom and dad were funny, but remember, I had Tubby who was a comedian on Miami Beach.
I just saw I was at a friend's his office. He's a comedian that started out in Pips out in Brooklyn, and they had a big it was his first time headlining Pips in like the 80s, and there was a big half a page was Tubby Boots.
Oh yeah.
And he was gonna be in town. I was like, Gary.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. I grew up with him, and he was a filthy comic. Oh my God, he was blue comic. He did the cruise ships, but my father loved him. My father, he would sit at the dinner table for Thanksgiving or Christmas, and he would tell jokes, and we couldn't get through the first course. My mother would say, Tubby, if you don't shut up, I got to feed these people. And he'd say, oh, sis, shut up. Just shut up. And my father would say, oh, shut up, sis. I don't get this on the airplane. The pilots I fly with are not funny like this, so, but yeah, I grew up around it, but I wasn't. I mean, I was okay. Like Bud Friedman said, you're okay, but you're not going to make a living at this. And even I knew it back then. Who are your influences now? I mean, who do you look at? Who have you seen recently in the last couple of years that you go, yeah, that person's really they're heading for a good time here.
I when I worked at Stand Up New York, I saw some of the biggest names in comedy start, and then watch them popcorn into, monster stars. But and I was wrong on a lot of them, where I'm like, that person's never going to go anywhere, and then they have their own TV show, a year later. But I'll never forget, I was working, and this was before I lived in PA, but I was working at the Philly Punchline, and Shane Gillis was the MC. And I remember watching his opening set and was going, I'll be opening for that guy soon.
Yeah. You just see it sometimes, right?
Yeah. And then sometimes you see somebody and you go, oh, they're going to hit a home run. And then you see it like Nick, you see somebody and then you see him again. You go, oh, they haven't grown at all.
And I think this is also with sports when you're young.
Yeah.
Extremely talented people fade away quickly. Because then when they hit adversity and they have a hard time, they just kind of quit. I've seen so many comics that it was like their first time on stage, destroy a room, and they come back and they'd kill, and Carolines would come and give them their own night, and they'd blow up, and they would become like, this is the next rising star comedy. And then the minute they hit a hard point, they quit.
Yep.
It's the ones who really want it and maybe aren't that good at the beginning that keep working at it. You see them slow rise, and then next thing you know, you go away, you're gone for a while on the road, you come back home, and you see them open a show, and you go, oh shit, they found it. They found their thing.
I think what a lot of people don't understand, and both of you do, this is not a 9-to-5 world. It's a 24/7 world. Even for me, and I only do this show once a week, but even for me, I'm thinking about 2-3 weeks from now. It's a 24/7. When I was out in LA, it was you do your comedy at night or you work. I worked at the Beverly Center as a security guard to pay the bills while I was doing comedy for Bud. And then I would audition during the day. Now, when I first got there, I was just emceeing for Bud. And Stephen Boschko walks into the club and he says, Gary, what are you doing here? And I said, well, I'm living here. And he gave me his card. Next thing you know, I'm doing 5 and under stuff for Hill Street Blues and stuff. So that helped pay the bills. But
Nice.
eventually, yeah, I had to. But I think actors are the same way, Mark. I think some of them who are extremely talented, like years ago, they'd go to work and maybe they get a job on a soap opera for 5 or 6 years. They collect their money, save it right, and they'd go back home. They knew what the business was. And they said, I'm going back home and up a pastry shop.
I moved to New York, and he was doing soaps. He had 2 giant billboards in Times Square for modeling. And this guy was working every day. It was like, he was like, oh yeah, I got a meeting at the, offices for Law and Order with Dick Wolf. I have a meeting with, all these famous people that I only read about. And it was like, this guy blew up, and then all of a sudden he just quit and disappeared. And we're like,
isn't it funny? If you watch Law and Order, at the beginning, the first 10, 15 years, there were a lot of actors who were there again and again and again and again for different roles. But you never, except for one guy who was on Blue Bloods, and he played the mayor for a while. Most of the actors that you would see either were on Broadway or maybe did theatrical productions around the country. But most of those actors you never saw again in TV or movies. Yeah. I mean, I guess maybe that was I guess working on Law and Order was kind of like, the local thing. And you never saw a lot of them again. You really didn't.
Business is hard. And I think, even when you're successful, there are moments where you go, you know what? I have another opportunity. I might take it because I don't want to do this my whole life. It beats you up and it makes you fragile,
when Mark and I first met, Sal, I had, like you guys, dark hair. Sal, what about you? And then I want to get into something that Sal and I talked about a great deal of, and Mark knows how I feel about it, and that's dirty comics. But Sal, what about you? Who you see up and coming?
God, the guys working today, there's just so many really good comics. I know I had the opportunity to work with Mark Norman in Ann Arbor kind of before he blew up, and just a great writer, great guy that just writes everything down. He's got notepads all over the place. He was fun to watch as a young guy. I worked with Nate Bargatze kind of before he kind of blew up, and he was just a nice guy. And I watched those guys. I saw Michael. I don't know if you know who Michael Costa is. He's on The Daily Show. I saw him do stand-up his very first time out in Ann Arbor. Literally his very first time on stage. And it was like one of those things where I think Mark mentioned it earlier. He got off stage. You're like, all right, this guy's got it. He's just a tall, good-looking guy. He had great material. Literally his first night, he did well. And I'm like, all right, that guy's got it, And then he blew up. He blew up in a hurry, There's just I work with a lot of younger comics that even somebody's like, I'll go to an open mic or something, and I'll see this open micer do 10 minutes. I'm like, oh my God, that's a good 10 minutes. Like, that's a solid start for that guy,
Yeah.
And you're just like impressed. So I'm impressed. I'm not into, I know a lot of the TikToks and a lot of the IG stuff now is this crowd work. I'm not really into that too much. I know it's kind of funny to watch and stuff, and I do it too on stage. Like Mark said earlier, I wish I would have recorded every set I ever did in the 90s when I was dealing with that kind of stuff. I'd have hours of material. Maybe I could have blown up, But I don't really tend to like that kind of comedy. And a lot of that's going on now. A lot of guys have blown up because of their crowd work. Like Mark said earlier, God bless every comedian that can get their payday. I'm all for it. I am all for that, because so many of us work for $100 and drive 3 hours when we were starting out. And it's just so to get your payday, no matter how you do it, God bless everybody.
That I begrudge guys for getting in the fast lane. Like some guys, they don't. I never did open mics. I've never did open mics.
Really?
So, I was lucky enough that I worked at a club, and I would get up when they were. I would go on when everybody was paying their check, so it wasn't like I got handed the easiest life in the world. But I've never went to open mics. I'd go on the road, and people go, "You want to go to an open mic?" And I'd be like, "I've never been to one." Let's do it.
Open mics can be can be horrible
brutal
for your confidence, really.
Oh, they're brutal. They're brutal.
I don't begrudge these guys who blew up online and then like all of a sudden start playing theaters, and you're like, but they never paid their dues. But they kind of did. They figured it out online.
They did.
Like they were smarter than me.
I started out at the Comedy Store in Fort Lauderdale, and I got up there and I did okay to open night, and I got some stuff, and then I moved to LA, and I did an open mic night for Bud because he insisted on it because he'd never heard of me and I didn't have any film on myself. And I got up there and I got nervous as all hell because in the audience were actors that I knew from television. It was just one of those nights. And I my legs were, I was sweating like there was a hose over my head. I mean, I was like, oh my God, you know. And then Robin was sitting over here. Billy Crystal was over here. And I'm like, all I need is Whoopi Goldberg and I'm really in trouble. You know, and then I did a couple of jokes. And they laughed. And then I started doing my impressions, which Mark knows I'm semi-famous for my impersonations. And I started doing those. And that was it. That was it. Even Robin came over to me later and said, oh, man, you're funny. You're funny. And he and I became friends because of that. Billy Crystal and I became friends somewhat. But I never did meet Miss Whoops at all. But I will tell you that it's frightening. It's frightening.
I was watching one of those sit down, where comedians are on a table, sit down kind of thing. And I just always remember what Paul Reiser said, from the guy from Mad About You. He's like, when I started, I was just doing open mics, and then I was emceeing, and then I was featuring. Then I started headlining. This is Paul talking. He goes, then I started headlining. He goes, the very first night I had this, I forgot if it was an improv in Cleveland or something like that. And I'm standing outside and all these people were in line to come see me. And he goes, why? Why are they coming to see me? Am I worth that $20? What the heck is going on? Like, these are just jokes I wrote, like, with my friends, and now people are paying a lot of money to come see. He had no confidence in himself. And I feel like that sometimes. I think every comedian feels like that. Oh my God, what am I doing? Am I supposed to be here? These people are paying big money to come see a comedian. Holy crap, they're coming to see me. Am I good enough? It's so.
You want to know?
Paul Reiser says it. It's for real.
Robin said once on a talk show, this was before he died, a year or so. He said, it's getting to the point now. I don't know if they're really laughing at my jokes or they're laughing at them because I'm Robin Williams.
Wow,
that's a hard moment to have, an honest moment if you're famous, to be like, am I really? Are they laughing?
Am I funny? Am I funny anymore, or is it that they're laughing at me because
I think Jerry Seinfeld said that too. He's like, I can go up there and am I really funny because these people are laughing at me because I had a hit television show for 20 years. Yeah. They're going to laugh at anything I say. Is it really funny? Is this stuff really funny, or are they just? So I guess when you get to that level, what's that?
Eddie Murphy was like,
he said the same thing
to the people in the audience.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, but like, you get that famous, maybe you can't. To go back to something though, real quick, is I never did the open mics, and it wasn't because I was like a prima donna.
Yeah.
But I saw the open mics, and I go, you're just performing for comics.
Yeah.
If you can make the comics laugh, you're not going to make the audience laugh, because you have to do really sick stuff to make comics laugh.
Yeah, that's a good point. And and there are some good open mic. There was a really good open mic when I started. It was called Club Bart, and it was near Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle in Royal Oak. And would start at like 10:45 at night. And but that was a good open mic. That was packed every week, and 10, 12 comics would go up. And this is the late 90s, so there was no internet, no nothing. Just people came out to that thing. That was like one of the best open mics I've ever seen. But most open mics are, like Mark said, 20 comics, 2 people, regular people, and 20 comics. That's probably 90% of the open mics. So we've got to get a bit going,
We've got about 5 minutes left. And
this was a lot of fun, you guys. God, that flew by.
We're going to do it again. Believe me, we're going to do. If I can ever get Youngstown, Ohio, over here to commit, he's so busy. He's busier than a one-eyed man in a burlesque house. I'm telling you that right now. He's hotter than a Puerto Rican with a stolen credit card. If I ask the question,
wait. You asked me to bring talent.
Okay.
Now
That's
I
probably
got
better
it.
than
Now I
my
got
damn
it.
question.
All right. There. Oh, Tommy,
Whoa,
you did
There's
well.
Bella. Take her
You
down,
did
dude.
very well, Tommy.
And what's your name, young
She's
lady?
gorgeous. She's beautiful.
What's your name?
Say my name's Bella. She's a bartender here at Twin Peaks. Bella.
She looks like a young
Where's
Angelina Jolie.
the Tommy? You know I'm from Miami, so where's the bar at? Tommy,
it's in Doral.
Oh, okay, not far. Okay, because I used to live in Miami a long time ago when I was at Power 96 and Y100. A long time ago. Oh, there we go. Oh, he's gonna make sure she can hear. All right, Tommy. I'm gonna close up the show.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, young lady. We're doing fine. We're doing fine.
Looks like we lost Tommy.
Yeah, we lost Tommy now. You know, we lost Tommy, but yeah, it's nice to meet you. And I'm from Miami. I'm from Miami. I'm from the Hollywood area, but I used to work at Power 96, Y100, WIOD. I worked at all the stations, and I went to the U. So I'm a big South Florida fan. I'm a big South Florida. All right. Anyway, darling, I got to close up the show.
Yeah, you guys should come to Peaks, though.
Okay. All right, we will. All right.
You guys.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
All right. All right, Tommy. We're gonna Tommy.
See, I told you. You ask, you get.
All right, Tommy. I'm gonna ask
I
one
ran
more
out
question.
of jokes. Yes, sir.
I'm gonna ask one more question, and we're gonna close up the show. And then I'm gonna keep Mark on, and if Sal wants to join us afterwards, because I got to talk to Mark about some stuff he's gonna maybe do for us. I don't know. We got to find out. But anyway, guys, if I ask you seriously, who is Mark Riccadonna and who's Sal Demelio? Who are you really? Down deep inside, when you're all alone by yourself.
Are you asking me, or are you asking these guys?
No, Tommy, I know who you are.
Who am I? I'll tell you.
No, man, who are these guys?
I am a 12-year-old Sal Demelio kid that just dreamt of playing third base for the New York Yankees. That's who I am. That's it. And now I grew up.
Mark.
I'm a dad first. I love being a dad more than anything. And then I just try to be a good person. That's who I am. I just want to be a good person. When I leave this world, I want it to be nicer than when I came in.
There you go.
And the computer says yes. Anyway, I just want to thank both of my guests.
Oh, thank you guys.
Sal and Mark. Stick around just for a few minutes after the show if you can. And I want to thank all of you for taking the opportunity to join us. And you're going to be seeing this on YouTube and a few other places, Spotify, as we move down the road. So please, thank you so much. We're going to have Mofo on next week, the UFO people. And then after that, we're going to have some sports the following week. Until then, would you please do me a big favor? Take care of yourselves and each other.
Good night.